Hello, I'm Dr. Ramsey Dolul. I'm a chiropractor with my private practice located in Lafayette, Colorado. I specialize in helping people prevent, diagnose, and provide conservative treatment for spine and extremity-related disorders that cause painful conditions of bones, muscles, and nerves. I'm an evidence-based office, which means that I use the latest medical research to stay current on health-related issues. I created this program because I've been a long-distance runner for many years, frequently running more than 50 miles a week. My foot discomfort was progressing and beginning to have consequences in other areas besides running. So I decided to research the topic of foot pain and what effective remedies were available, and hence how this class came to be. Now here in Colorado, we have great weather, and that inspires many of us to get out and walk and run and do other fun activities. But when foot pain begins, it can start as something annoying and then become quite debilitating. When we have an opportunity to do something fun, many of us quickly think about the associated consequences of the discomfort it will bring and if it's even worth it. Of course, this keeps us from enjoying the quality of our activities and our quality of life drops. So today, I want to talk about tips, tools, and ideas to get you back onto your feet. So, let's get started by talking about some of the basics and who the major players are in your feet. Surprisingly to most people, there's 26 bones in the foot that are arranged in 3 arches. One along the inside that most of us call the arch, one along the ball of the foot, the transverse arch, and one along the outside of the foot, the lateral arch. Now all the bones and arches are there so the foot can move enough to accommodate changing ground surfaces. The arches are held in place by ligaments and not by bones or tendons. Tendons attach the muscles to bones, which allow the bones to be moved. Ligaments, on the other hand, act like straps, connecting the bones together and tend to stretch out over time. Ligaments have the same consistency of like a shopping bag from Target. Initially, a ligament has a little stretch to it, but if you really stretch it, it does not return to its original shape. The feet are amazing and provide 3 functions for us. First, they act like a foundation. You figure that the whole body stands on top of them, and they need to maintain an upright stance over a variety of different surfaces and terrains. Second, the arches act like shock absorbers when we walk and jump. They spread out and absorb compressive shock waves from the foot hitting the ground. And lastly, they provide spring and recoil when the arches return to their normal positions. So, if the foot is such an amazing structure, then why are we having problems with them? Well, let's talk about when things go wrong. Now we've all heard of flat feet or fallen arches, so what causes arches to fail? Hard surfaces, walking and running, abuse of feet? Well, actually it's all 3. Hard surfaces, which are flat and consistently safe, are the majority of our walking surfaces. Our feet have grown lazy over the years, and we really don't need to do much to grip the ground or accommodate uneven surfaces, which leaves us in a weakened and unresponsive place. Walking and running causes us to impact the ground at 2 to 4 times our body weight. Doing a little math, we can see that if we weigh 100 pounds and we're impacting the ground at 4 times our body weight, we're looking at over 400 pounds of force with each heel strike. And if you're running for several miles, well, we're looking at quite a bit of force that the foot is trying to deal with. And lastly, abuse of feet. Women's shoes and poorly fitting or improper shoes are the biggest culprits that cause stress and fatigue of our feet. We can see how healthy the arches of the foot are, and therefore how functional the foot is by doing a weight-bearing digital scan of the bottom of the foot. Standing on top of the scanner shows the foot's contact area. There should be 3 contact areas. One at the heel that is egg-shaped, one at the ball of the foot that looks like a kidney bean shape, and lastly, we should have contact points in the middle of each toe. We talked about arches failing, and for each arch there is a typical way that they fail. For example, when we scan a foot with a lateral arch failure, we can see that the outer part of the foot collapses onto the glass. Typical problems associated with the lateral arch failure include pain over the top portion of the middle of the foot, Many complain that the shoes always feel too tight and experience a sense that their foot would break if they tied their shoes. Most don't think that shoes fit well because of this. The transverse arch failure will look as though the kidney bean shape is melting like hot cheese, and we get a dunce cap at the top of the egg-shaped contact of the heel. Commonly associated problems include pain and discomfort along the ball of the foot. Because of this, many who have this problem don't like walking on the expansive hard concrete floors of stores like Walmart or Costco. Toe numbness of the fourth and fifth toes can also occur when the arch drops down and presses a nerve that serves these toes. A Morton's neuroma occurs when nerves have chronic pressure and irritation on them, when the arch collapses down onto them. It's like a callus you'd get on your hand from using a shovel, but it's on a nerve. Lastly, the springy recoil of the normal arch is lost, and that means the foot requires more effort just to move it. Medial arch failure causes the rolling over of the foot in an inward and downward fashion. This is called pronation and more commonly known as flat feet. Associated problems include plantar fasciitis, which is a tearing and a shearing of the muscles and supportive tissues along the bottom of the foot and is associated with sharp, stabby pain, which a lot of people express as standing on ground glass, especially in the morning with the first few steps after getting out of bed. Heel spurs occur when the muscles anchored at the bottom of the heel are under constant extreme shearing stress because of the fallen arches. The body tries to reinforce this highly stressed area by infusing the area with calcium. While this initially sounds like a great idea, over time, the spur gets large enough that it starts poking sensitive tissues and can cause pain with each step. Shin splints occur as a result of poor foot mechanics and shock distribution as the muscles become overworked and the bones experience microfractures as a result. Bunions are created as a result of the poor foot mechanics associated with the fallen arch that causes the foot to consistently roll over the inside aspect of the big toe rather than the bottom. Over time, the constant pushing on the joint becomes irritated and degenerative changes occur. The feet are the foundation to our body, and everything stacks on top of them. Arch failure causes changes that affect the structures above by creating a domino effect of problems. The legs plug into the feet and hold up the pelvis. The spine plugs into the pelvis and supports the trunk and the upper extremities. As the arches fail, the foot height will drop, lowering the leg it supports. The loss of arch height will result in dysfunctional movements of the ankle, knee, hip, and pelvis. The consequences of an unlevel pelvis cause compensatory postural changes of the spine and the upper extremity. This is how people who have chronically bad feet can indirectly be associated with a variety of joint and spine issues, even headaches. Okay, now that we've talked about what can go wrong, let's start talking about how we can take charge of our situation. What are our next steps? Well, for one, we can start using the right shoes. Basically, there are three categories of athletic shoes. Ones for running and walking that are made of lightweight materials with largely cushiony soles to absorb shock and are made to walk and run forward, not side to side. The materials aren't made to do this, and the soles are tall enough that they can cause ankle injury if rolled over. The second kind of shoe is a cross trainer. These are made of a more durable material and tend to have a lower sole that's not made to absorb high impact levels from walking and running. These shoes are made for more side-to-side movements associated with court sports or aerobic workouts, and not so much for walking and running long distances. Lastly, we have the outdoor or hiking shoes. These shoes are going to be made of the thickest materials, meant to be protective of the feet, and the soles have more aggressive treads for better grip on loose surfaces. Each type of shoe has its own purpose and rarely does well doing anything else than what it was designed to do. Most people think that a shoe should look worn out or old before replacing it. The reality is that the sole of the shoe is made of a kind of foam called EVA and breaks down after being repeatedly crushed. Usually before the shoe looks old, or worn out. So this is the largest concern of shoe failure, because if the shoe is collapsing under you, it'll cause stress to the foot. Typically, shoes have a general lifespan, and this can vary according to different brands and models and is measured in mileage. Ask your professional shoe salesperson for more information. Now, I'm not talking about the person who works part-time at the department store's underwear department and the shoe department, but rather the ones who work at a dedicated running shoe store like the Boulder Running Company in Boulder, Roadrunner Sports in Westminster, or Running Roost in Louisville. The shoes are only as good as the feet in them, so we'll want to build strength and flexibility in your feet. In your handout are some stretches and exercises using a rubber strap like a TheraBand. Another great way of building strength is standing on a stability disc for a few minutes a day. It helps to build foot strength, balance, and nervous system control. For reestablishing flexibility in the foot, a massaging device like a golf ball works well. I prefer the semi-firm spiky balls that are about the size of a tennis ball. For many, these home remedies will help to control their symptoms. But for a few of us whose conditions have progressed and don't respond well to these home therapy options, they'll want to seek professional help. Everyone has their own tolerance levels, and when you're ready, you'll want more information and will probably have questions about professional care and more specifically about orthotics. Being educated and informed consumer will help you from wasting your time, effort, and money. Let's start by talking about orthotics. An orthotic works to restore proper function to arches that have failed by restoring proper arch positioning. Once restored position occurs, then the joints of the foot tend to stop grinding and function better. A foot that is functioning better will feel more supported and more comfortable. There's 3 types of orthotics: soft, semi-rigid, and rigid. Soft orthotics are mainly for comfort and diabetics to help them avoid getting foot sores, so we aren't going to talk about them anymore. That leaves the semi-rigid and rigid orthotics. There's pros and cons to them. The rigid orthotic is hard, like a cast on a broken arm. Its purpose is to limit movement. The more movement that is limited, the less the arches move against each other and the less they will hurt. These types of orthotics are good for those who don't need their foot to move much. Folks who have sedentary lifestyles or significant degenerative changes in the foot will benefit the most. The semi-rigid orthotic is more flexible, comfortable, and works by supporting the failed arches. This encourages the natural movement of the foot, which creates more control, stability, and resilience. This orthotic is used by those who live active lifestyles that include walking and running. Orthotics come in a wide range of quality and purpose. For those who have relatively minimal issues, some generic over-the-counter orthotics might be beneficial, whereas those with more specific issues will benefit from a customized prescription orthotic made by a healthcare professional. Unfortunately, not all professionals have the same school of thought on how to address your situation. The medical field and physical therapists follow a model that tends to want to limit and constrict foot movements and therefore use hard orthotics which address failure of 1 and sometimes 2 of the 3 arches. Chiropractors and functional-based practitioners will use semi-rigid orthotic because of the increased level of comfort and the ability to address all 3 arch issues and to encourage rather than limit normal foot motion. I've seen many folks struggling with foot conditions while wearing orthotics but are still having problems because their orthotics are not appropriate for their situation, are only correcting 1 or 2 arches, and or they have unrealistic expectations of a poor quality orthotic. Lastly, we need to talk about the structural restoration. Many people ask me why as a chiropractor I do foot classes and screenings. It is because as a sport chiropractor, I focus on prevention, diagnosis, and conservative treatments of spine and extremity-related disorders that cause painful conditions of bones, muscles, and nerves. I help people by restoring proper function into the dysfunctional joints and tissues and help them reach their health goals. This video is associated with a digital foot screening service which helps to give a visual as to how well your foot is functioning and a one-on-one consultation with me to address your questions and concerns. Changes in the presentations of the foot, such as the ones we can see in a digital foot scan image, most commonly originate from foot dysfunction of the arches of the feet. Joint dysfunctions occur when the joints of the foot are misaligned and not functioning properly. poor joint alignment leads to weak and unbalanced muscles, which compromises training patterns, results in poor structural positioning that is difficult to move, and are prone to problems and injury. So, as a chiropractor, I fix the joint dysfunction by helping people regain lost function of the joints of their feet and extremities. The treatment I offer focuses on restoring proper joint alignment, strengthening the supporting muscles of the joint, and rebalancing the muscles involved in its movements. Optimal foot function results in a more efficient, stronger, and resilient foot. We can talk more about your condition during your screening process and associated consultation period. So, to wrap up, we've talked about the major players of the foot. 26 bones placed in 3 arches that allow movements to compensate for changing ground surfaces. We talked about how the ligaments hold the arches in place and how over time they can stretch and create fallen or failed arches, and some common reasons that this happens. We also talked about ways we could take charge of our situation by addressing the 3 different types of shoes, their purposes, and when they wear out. Lastly, we talked about when to get professional help and the most commonly asked questions, orthotics. Specifically, we described the 3 different types, what they do, who prescribes what, and what to expect from them. And of course, we talked about how I help people reach their health goals by addressing foot dysfunction problems. I hope this video has been helpful in addressing your foot-related concerns. Please feel free to contact me if you need further information at Community Chiropractic in Lafayette, Colorado, or calling me at 303-818-0595, or by visiting my website at mycommunitychiropractic.com.